We are recording.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the March 13th SIG API Machinery meeting. That's 2019, if you're watching this in the very distant future. Today, a few people had put KEPs on the agenda, and so I went through and just grabbed all the available KEPs. I think some of those can be very short discussions, but I think it would be nice for us to, skim the ones there and decide if we need to take some action or assign somebody to review, etc. So with that said, let's take it from the top. Mike and Min have, Min has a KEP out, and I just realized that Mike's design is actually in a Google document. I read the second KEP without realizing that that wasn't the design. I was slightly confused, but not so confused that I went and actually found found the document. So unfortunately, Mike, I've just started reading your document.
So maybe now is not the time to discuss it.
So yes, perhaps not. I apologize for that. I will say I made some comments on Min's PR. The thing that I really had problems with was some requests skipped the queue. I felt like that would lead to bimodal behavior, latency behavior. But Min is going to change that. So yeah, I need to read yours, Mike.
Oh, now that's okay. Now I didn't notice those comments. I wonder why.
So, I made it yesterday. That's probably why.
Well, if you made them on the KEP, I would think GitHub would notify me, so I'm a little confused. But yeah. Anyway, let's see here. Actually, I don't see them on the KEP. I'm sorry, on the PR. 891 in the enhancements.
Let me make sure that we're talking about the right one. No, this is your KEP. No, it's actually Min's KEP proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So remember that in today's existing Max in Fight handler, some requests are admitted without limitation.
Mm-hmm.
It remarks the comments refer to requests from, I think it says super user and loopback, and I think the intended, at least my intent is to be doing something analogous.
I still feel like just an ordinary guarantee should be good for those, right? Like if we guarantee a certain QPS, like skipping and you're sending more than that, you don't want some of your requests to like get instant service and some of your requests to be arbitrarily delayed by some queue.
Well, remember we have this problem that some requests are secondary. They're just serving primary. They're meta requests in some sense that happen in the course of serving primary requests. And if the primary requests are top priority, well, the meta requests had better be at least as high priority as the primary request. And if the primary request is top priority, then the meta request has to be top priority. And we can get into deadlock unless they're admitted unconditionally.
That is probably true, but it doesn't like admitting some unconditional. Okay, so I guess in at least Min's thing, it wasn't that they admitted requests unconditionally; it's that it admitted requests unconditionally. But it admitted requests if there was reserved quota remaining, which is not the same as admitting them unconditionally.
Right, and so that can get into deadlocks. So the reason I think we have to admit top priority requests without delay and without condition is to avoid deadlocks for these secondary requests.
I find that at least somewhat compelling. I need to spend some time with your actual document. I did like the KEP here, or all the design detail section. Like I think at least like 95% of this is actually like background reading or like lit review, which I think should go in the KEP no matter what design we end up with.
Yes, that's the intent. Is my understanding is the KEP should include, a discussion of the design issues. So that's what
Yeah, no,
intended to be.
I think it's a great discussion. Yeah, I don't think I disagree with anything that is written in this KEP.
Well, that's the older one. That's no longer the latest proposal.
Yeah.
So
So
what you just highlighted. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe one of the the KEP with the goals and like the skeleton, I believe that's merged at this point. At least I approved it.
Yes.
So that's good. Min suggested on chat, I don't know if he's on the meeting, he suggested on chat that at this point we should maybe pick an overall approach before like optimizing individual approaches more. And unfortunately, I need to spend some time reading your current document.
Sure. Yeah, I think he's sleeping right now. He and I have been discussing, synchronously and asynchronously. So whenever you're ready, let's get together, perhaps in a separate meeting or in the next iteration of this meeting.
Yeah.
I think Min and I would like to proceed quickly. So, whenever you're ready, email or a separate meeting or whatever, let's follow up.
I'll tell you what, I'll try to kick something off or schedule something by the end of the day, because I'm interested in this, and performance review season is over here, at least for me. So I have a little bit more time than I did the last couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I'm going to make myself a note. Next on the list is Walter's, and I don't know the actual name of the other. Young-kun is, I didn't recognize the, I know them, I didn't recognize the handle, is the network proxy KEP. And this is maybe not a perfectly clear name. We're talking about adding a layer between API server and the outside world in terms of like egress from API server. So I don't know, Walter, do you want to talk about it? Are you on camera? Can you sneak in a little bit?
One of the cameras.
Yeah.
That's
your hand is.
My hand makes it.
Yeah.
So
you don't need to put that close to Walter.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I project well. So the idea for the network proxy is we have a few things that we'd like to solve. One is DIMS has been asking to get the SSH tunnel code removed for a while, and in fact, if we're going to make progress on the SIG cloud provider extraction, that needs to happen. In addition, there are a couple of security concerns that exist today. There's one documented in the KEP having to do with a security vulnerability found via things like proxy. And there is a mechanism by which the use of this new network proxy and a firewall can allow us to secure that system so that we are no longer vulnerable. We'd also just like to add this as an extension mechanism by which we can control that traffic, whether it's for auditing or other reasons. It also allows us to take care of issues for cloud providers where the IP CIDRs for the control plane actually overlap with the IP CIDRs that have been picked by the customer for the cluster network, and regular IP routing doesn't fix that, but this network proxy system does. So that's sort of an overview of the major problems that we're trying to solve with this.
Yeah. So as I understand it, basically there's a configuration layer.
Right.
API server will classify outgoing traffic by some scheme, and you configure API server to send traffic with a given classification through a given proxy.
And then that proxy is responsible for knowing how to get the traffic where it needs to go. So for instance, if you are a cloud provider and you need to deal with IP CIDR conflicts, or you just want to tunnel the traffic in a secure manner between the networks, then all of the logic that used to be the SSH tunnel code is pulled out of the QB API server and exists in a separate process, which is the proxy that can be left as an exercise to the cloud provider, although the intent is that we would produce a fairly simple reference implementation as part of this.
And it's important to understand that if you don't need this behavior, you don't have to use it. Like you can just configure everything to egress directly onto the network.
Exactly.
I don't know if anyone from EKS or AKS is on the call, but in-person conversations at the last KubeCon, I know that they're interested in this, so I don't think this is it's not something that only benefits one cloud provider.
Yeah, I've certainly gotten some cloud provider AWS has the reps from there have certainly reached out to me with interest for this.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think I don't know that we want to go in depth on the design here. I think what we can usefully do in this meeting is make sure that the right set of approvers is on this document. Or on this cap, so that we can basically know what we have to do to get it approved. I've made at least one pass over it. Well, I've read it. I don't think I've left comments. So I think right now we're thinking that the network SIG and API machinery are the relevant stakeholders. Does anyone think that we need to expand that?
Participating might be SIG auth just because of the security aspects of it, making sure that we have the right controls around when traffic goes to which place.
Okay, so maybe we should find a SIG auth reviewer.
I know
make sure that
Mike
happens.
Denise had been.
Mike Denise has definitely
about it.
commented on this, and I don't think I've actually addressed all his concerns yet, so I need to spend a bit more time with Mike.
What about SIG Cloud Provider?
So I'm actually, I'm one of the leads on SIG Cloud Provider, and in addition, Andrew Sykim, who is the chair for SIG Cloud Provider, has reviewed it. So I will probably bring it up in the next, not so much as a approver, but we're definitely going to get reviews from SIG Cloud Provider. I've also arranged to get reviews, but not approvals from SIG cluster lifecycle.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So it seems like this is in good shape, or at least on track to be read by the relevant people. So I don't think we need to do anything else at the moment.
Do we need to register any of the things that we said here on the issue itself? Because it looks like Mike Denise is on the issue already, but he's not assigned as a...
yeah, maybe Walter can take that as an action item to actually assign reviewers from auth and cloud provider. Well, I guess, yeah, it sounds like you're covered from cloud provider, but it'd be good to officially have someone from auth.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So like I said, I scanned the open KEPs with API machinery. Actually, I punted one out because it wasn't actually relevant. So we've got 3 left that I think it would be good to look at. So let's see. First is the convert webhooks. This is actually Jordan.
Yeah, so this is a follow-up to some of the design work we did for 114. There were 2 issues that were in the list of GA requirements for webhook admission. And one was automatically converting incoming requests. Let me back up. Webhooks register for resources that they want to intercept. And they register particular versions, particular API groups that they understand and want to intercept. As new versions of those resources are added, it is possible that a webhook that registered for one version is now no longer intercepting all of the available versions. And that may be what they want, but likely is not. And so having a way for a webhook to register for a set of versions that they understand, and if other versions of those resources come into existence in the future, allow the API server to convert those requests to versions the webhook understands and still route them through the webhook. There would be
You
a way
said convert to versions, plural. I presume you mean convert to one particular version.
that the webhook understands, correct. And so this expands the admission review object that is sent to the webhook to provide additional information so the webhook can see that that occurred, if it did, and a way for the webhook to opt out of that behavior if for some reason they don't want to intercept all versions. So this is one of the two outstanding GA requirements for webhooks. This updates the existing KEP to add a detailed design around that.
Have I left comments on this? I don't think I have.
Not the official. Well, I think you left it on a draft.
Yeah.
earlier.
So clearly this is much more user friendly to the webhook author. The thing that I am somewhat concerned about is it implies that in principle it's impossible for the aggregator to hook the webhooks. Like every backing API server has to implement the webhook, which is
that is already the case.
Yeah, it's already the case, but I think it's kind of a problem.
Given that admission has to, especially for update and delete, has to have existing object data, I think it has to be the server that is touching storage
Yeah.
that calls out to admission.
Yeah, I'm not saying I would be against it for that reason, but it is something that I have thought about, and it might be good to think about how we can do something to.
Why is it useful for the aggregator to call to the webhook?
If you provide it basically raises the bar for making a aggregated API server. It's yeah. I don't know that we can usefully do something about it, but it is something that has occurred to me, and I think it is less than ideal.
Sorry. Quick question, Jordan. What controls the version of the object that is sent to the webhook?
The webhook still registers for individual versions. Yeah. So if the webhook says, I want to intercept v1 pods,
But is that a per instance of the webhook, or is that?
In the webhook configuration today, it registers for particular.
So what I'm trying to think of is if you had a sort of an HA webhook configuration and you wanted to upgrade, do you end up with a problem where in the middle of the upgrade, I've got the one copy of the old webhook, one copy of the new webhook, and a configuration where it's not clear I'm going to be sending the wrong version to one of them?
You can register for multiple versions. Today, if you were going to roll out a webhook that understood new versions, you could either roll them all out at once, and you run the risk of some of them getting versions the old ones getting a version they don't understand.
I'm not sure if our documentation makes this clear enough or not, but in an upgrade scenario, basically webhooks must tolerate one prior version, and you have to update your webhooks before you update the rest of the Kubernetes control plane.
And a webhook can register for multiple versions.
So no, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that we had a very clear mechanism for upgrading HA webhooks.
Yeah, roll out the new code, then roll out the config that sends new versions to it.
And I think to Daniel's point, it's a hard requirement that you have to be able to tolerate two versions.
Yes, because otherwise you can't do a rolling update of the rest of the control plane.
So I have a question. Reading the CAP actually suggested that the behavior of sending this newer version to web should be default. And I agree, it's better, but I just want to point out it's actually somehow a backward incompatible change, as right now webhooks don't actually get that behavior.
I thought
today webhooks get exactly the things that they register for. So
And then
this,
you make the behavior of getting your version by default. That's a behavior change.
you're saying you would see objects that you previously maybe forgot to register for?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's a bug fix. Yes, it's a behavior change, but is it a bad one?
It depends.
We are giving the user to opt out of this, so this is not a bug.
Again, there are narrow reasons for intercepting a particular version. Like if a particular version had problematic behavior or a default that was causing problems, and you wanted to intercept that one version or prevent that one version.
What I'm saying is, if right now somebody has that web,
Right.
and we release this, it won't work for that.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Keeping existing behavior for V1 beta 1 and considering changing the default for V1 seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. So what needs to happen next on this? Are you waiting for an approver? Does it need?
Yeah, I think you and David
Okay.
were on there.
Yeah, I think David couldn't make it today. You're not on the call, right, David? Yeah, I think David couldn't make it today.
Okay.
So
Shall we?
so that's a sign of lots of work.
Regarding the step, shall we specify how the API server tell if two resource endpoints actually refer to the same thing? Shall we use the resource ID cap or do some local?
Given that it needs to be able to do the conversion, I think building the map of which resource versions are identical based just on discovery, like there has to be corresponding conversion code that it has a handle to. And so it seems like the code that knows how to convert between things is much more prescriptive than, hey, I looked at my own discovery document and noticed that these two strings are identical. It seems like we could get into situations where these two strings are identical, but then I am missing that conversion code.
For CRD, do we have the conversion code internally?
Yeah. Yeah. So part of what Mehdi did fixing some of the bugs that were found in the last release gives us the handles to the converters that we need to get between the two versions.
Okay, I made an entry on my to-do list to look at this. Okay, cool. Next, pruning for custom resources. I don't know that we need to, I think this has been open for
Like a year.
a while, yeah.
It was a doc and then
Yeah, it
pull
says
the old repo.
January 22nd, but I think it's actually older than that. And we've just migrated KEP since it was open. But I think it was somewhat blocked on me, and so I've figured out a way to unblock it, which is basically have Stefan and Antoine and Jenny get in a room and hash this out, because Antoine and Jenny know all about apply, and my concern is at least partly making sure that this works with apply. Basically, I'm interested in getting a clear subset of OpenAPI features that are okay to use in the CRD schema definition. And like, yes. So specifically, there's concerns like the global negative quantifiers, like not any of is I've heard concerns about that, but I haven't found time personally to dig into this, and I think Antoine and or Jenny can help with this. So I think that will help us make progress, and plan to set that up soon. So
Yeah,
hopefully.
I tried actually to talk with Stefan. I don't think he's on call right now.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully by the next one of these meetings we'll have made some progress on this. Yeah.
Do we want to put something on the issue? Or?
No, I think it's okay. I think it's clear enough what's going to happen. I mean, it won't hurt if somebody feels like doing this. And last is one that I also hadn't seen until just now, and it's about API server authentication to webhooks. I don't know. That
That was part of what we were considering for whether it was a blocking issue for GA webhooks. And we decided that given that there is a method, which is not great, but is possible to do authentication, and given that we would want to do this consistently across all the webhooks, it wasn't urgent enough to block GA, and so this has kind of been tabled until after GA for consideration.
After webhooks GA or CRD GA?
Webhooks GA.
Okay. So you're saying it's not, we don't need to actively review it at this point? Okay. Great. Cool. I think that is all the KEPs I found that seemed relevant to discuss here. One I punted and one I asked for, I've already made comments and I asked if the author was going to update it or not. So anybody else have a topic that it would be good for this group to discuss? All right, let's all have half an hour back. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.